The Denon DJ Prime Go is kind of a masterpiece. It was fantastic when it launched, and it's only got better over time as more features have been added to Engine OS. Welcome to Beatsource Tech, my name is Mojaxx, and in this episode we look at the Prime Go Plus, a replacement for the original Go which in most regards could just be called the Prime Go again. Okay, cards on the table, when this thing arrived I was a bit disappointed. After the previous Plus models we've seen from Denon DJ, I shouldn't have been surprised really. That Plus designation basically means that the device gets a few internal tweaks and the addition of the hardware DRM chip for Amazon streaming, in my opinion the worst of all the streaming options in Engine OS. But the thing is, and I said this about the Prime 4 Plus, a lot of people like myself have been eagerly awaiting the true next generation of Engine OS hardware, and this definitely isn't that. And here we are 16 months on from the 4 Plus and we're still waiting. The Prime Go Plus is, for all intents and purposes, the Prime Go. Same design, same layout, and with one small exception, the same functionality. It's even priced the same with a street price of around $1,000 in the US. I will give Denon DJ credit for keeping that cost the same and not sneaking in a cheeky little price increase. What's actually new here? Well, the colour has changed. It now has this very fetching silver look, which I really dig. As with all gear which isn't just standard issue black, it may or may not be your ideal choice of colour, but as regular viewers know, I always appreciate things looking a bit different. They've also switched up some of the knobs as well, but that's a small thing. The other thing that's different on the hardware side is that the Plus is missing the Ethernet port on the rear which the original Go had. Now that made me genuinely quite cross when I first spotted it. They've removed the feature that I use, but there's a bit more to it. Inside the Prime Go Plus, Denon DJ have streamlined the internals with a newer processor and more efficient design, which means that yes, we have lost the Ethernet port, but we also gained better battery life. They're claiming 25% more, which we'll come back to. The company have obviously researched this stuff, and they told me that only a very small percentage of users actually ever use the hardwired connection on their Go. The vast majority use Wi-Fi. So it does make sense. But they also pointed out that actually if you get an Ethernet to USB dongle and plug that in, you can use Ethernet anyway. Doing that takes up the USB port of course, but they also told me that hey, you can use a USB hub on engine hardware too for extra drives. Now this might be me being really thick or forgetful, but I swear at no point have they ever told me that before, and that is really awesome. With those two slight negatives out of the way, let's get into the positives. Because the Prime Go, whether this new Plus version or the original, is in fact still a truly epic piece of DJ hardware. The OG was my favourite new product in 2020, the year it launched, and it's probably still in my top 3 products of the half decade since. It has limitations, the tiny jog wheels mostly, but it is really a fully featured device, offering everything you need to rock a party in a remarkably compact form. And as I'll show you in the demo shortly, thanks to the endless upgrades to Engine OS, it's also far more powerful today than it was back in 2020. Looking at the lineup of engine hardware, I think the Mixstream Pro Go is a better option for a beginner or intermediate DJ. It's cheaper, it has built-in speakers for practicing, and bigger jog wheels. But the Go, and now the Go Plus, are for the pros out there. Need a super compact main setup where space is tight? Prime Go. Need a battery-powered system for wedding ceremonies to use with a battery-powered speaker? Prime Go. Doing an important gig and need a backup system? Prime Go. That's actually the main way I have used my original Go. Where I used to carry a spare laptop for backup at things like corporate events or weddings, now I don't bother. Instead I take the Prime Go with an SD card full of party bangers, and that serves as a backup for my entire setup, laptop, decks and mixer or controller. And unlike the larger Mixstream or indeed the Alpha Theta Omnis Duo, it fits into most of my regular DJ backpacks with no special bag or case needed. I throw on the deck saver, chuck it in the bag, and I know I'm fully covered whatever happens. Before we get into the demo, I'll quickly break down the basics. The build is mostly plastic, but it was on the original Go and it doesn't feel cheap, and that one has held up perfectly for me over the past few years. The same goes for the sound. There are no upgrades here, but I've used the OG version on all manner of sound systems since 2020 and I've never found the quality to be wanting. The screen is excellent, bright, clear, and the viewing angles are wide enough that it being flat rather than tilted is never an issue. Connections offer everything you might need to hook up to a variety of systems too. There are balanced XLRs and unbalanced RCAs for the master, and a booth output on balanced jacks. There is no record output, but you can record internally to the unit. It features 2 mics which don't have EQ but do have decent preamps, and both have combo jack and XLR sockets. There's an aux input on RCAs too, with a level control on the front. The Plus may have lost the Ethernet port, but it still has a USB-A port on the rear for media drives, as well as the SD card slot on the front, which is my preferred way of getting files into it, as it tucks completely inside the unit. There's also a USB-B port for connecting to a computer, turning the Go Plus into a controller for Virtual DJ. It will no doubt work with Algorithm's DJ Pro 2, but the screen isn't supported in that software with the original, so I don't really count that. And I'm sad to say, like the original Go, the Plus is not currently supported by Serato DJ Pro. That would be a real killer upgrade which Denon DJ continue to overlook. I tested the company's claims of 25% extra battery life on the Plus. The original had in the region of 4 hours with sensible mitigations, not maxing out the screen brightness for example. For my test here, I fully charged the Plus and the original, whacked the screens up to full brightness, had Wi-Fi and Bluetooth turned on, and then played tracks in loops on both decks. The original Go died at just under the 3-hour mark, and the Plus made it another 30 minutes or so. So not quite the 25% claimed, but an improvement nonetheless. What I will note is that, of course, the battery in my original Go is almost 5 years old and has been charged and discharged many times. So A, this wasn't really a fair test, and B, the batteries in these things clearly do hold up very well. Either way, the battery life on the Go Plus is very good and does seem to be a bit better than it was on the original. Right, so I'm going to run you through the functionality here on the Prime Go Plus, not because there's anything different from the Prime Go, there isn't, it's the same hardware basically, but it's been so long since I reviewed the original Prime Go, and Engine, the underlying operating system, has been updated and expanded so massively, I figure it's worth taking a look at. And of course we have a new version of Engine launching alongside the Prime Go Plus. So the deck controls, we've got the cue and play pause buttons, we have the pitch bend buttons, which I always love to use when they're there on the device. I will generally use those instead of using a jog wheel, but you can pitch bend with that as well. We have the short but accurate pitch slider, especially if you use a plus or minus 4% range, which is my preference wherever possible. You can certainly dial in stuff manually there, not a problem. The jog wheel itself, yeah, this is not a turntablist weapon, obviously, but once you're used to the momentum and the dynamics of them, you can cut on them. Like, they're not impossible, they're just very, very small. And for general, maneuvering around a track and moving to different positions, queuing up and so on, you can absolutely use them for that without any fuss whatsoever. We've got the performance pads, which have quite a lot of features in them. Obviously there's only 4 on each deck, but we have 2 banks for each of the modes. So we've got the cues, and they're sort of rubbery pads with this quite long travel and a positive click at the bottom. I like the feel of them. Then we've got hot cues, 2 banks of those. We've got loop, which is your loops that you add. So it comes in, out, in and out. And then we've also got auto loops. And then we've got roll. Again, 2 banks of those. Then we have sampler under here as well. Again with 2 banks. So yeah, lots in there considering how few pads there actually are. There's plenty to be getting on with. The actual looping there's a looping coder here, which is my favourite way of working with loops really. So we can halve or double the loop, and then release or activate it by pushing it down. Yeah, really like that. It's a really nice way of working. Then we have the EQs and the trim control in a horizontal layout. Takes a minute maybe to get used to if you've never used it before, but quick enough you can adjust to those. Then we get on to the mixer section. The faders, look, again, it's not a turntablist weapon, but the cut-in's all right. It's fairly sharp and fairly short. And the thing with the faders, they're not anything special, right? There's nothing to write home about with them, but the ones on my Prime Go are over 4 years old now, still working as good as the day they came out of the box. So I don't have a problem with these faders whatsoever. The VU meters initially with the Prime Go were very kind of inaccurate. Now they've increased that accuracy over time, and here on the Go Plus they're just
Very, very functional, much better than they were when the Go originally launched. Queuing, you've got the auto queue now in Engine 4.1. Now, I don't use that, I don't like it, but if you're coming from something like Algorithm's DJ Pro, where that is, I think, the default behavior, so when you load a new track, it will automatically switch the queue over to that. As I say, I don't like it, but you might, and it's an option now, so that's good to see as well. We have the sweep effects, we have a filter, and you can adjust the resonance of that in the settings. And then we have the washout effect, which is not only a cool sounding rhythmic effect, but also it's a real great kind of get yourself out of trouble effect. You know, it works very nicely to just, I need to change tempos or something like that. It's a really nice one for that kind of purpose too. So I'm glad those are the two they chose there. Obviously your browse controls, you know, we can push down and then load to a deck that way, or we can use the dedicated load buttons. There's lots of ways of working with things here, but yeah, I like that a lot. The effects are just transformed since the Prime Go first launched. We now have an absolute ton of effects here, loads of them, including some really kind of cool ones like Stutter Out, for example. Let's assign that to channel 1. And you can change the pattern, you can change the number of bars, the frequency and all that stuff. Let's go back to the Echo and show you how we change parameters. So we've got this knob here, I can change the beat value, I can change the amount of feedback, I can change the effect's frequency, so how much bass or top end it's going to take away, and then the amount is the wet dry. Obviously it's not the most intuitive way of working having it up here on the top left. It isn't, you know, I will say that, but considering the space restrictions they've got here, again, it's easy enough to get used to, and the power of these effects is just ridiculous. Like the amount of them, they're brilliant, and they're just awesome. They really, really are. Reverb, rise, scale down, pitch down, all of these super cool effects that you now have inside Engine OS, and this has, I believe, the full suite of them. We also have touch effects. We can choose different effects there. Assign them to channel 1, channel 2, or the master. They're really fun. You can make them latch as well. We also have this one. Now, this is the thing with Engine. There are so many updates. Sometimes I just miss them. So this came in an update towards the end of 2023, I think it was. And this is fader echo. So now, if I turn that on, when I drop the fader or cut the crossfader, we get an echo. Very similar to something we saw on the DJ MS11 a while back, but so it's not entirely original, but what a great feature. I love echoes and delays, and yeah, we can just turn it right on or off there. We've also got the option in the newer versions to change the layout. We can save up to 3 that we've customized, so we can change from horizontal to vertical waveforms. I can show the performance pads and show what's going on with those. I can take the library on or off, show the main effects, change all that. We've got obviously the day mode in there as well. So let's go back now, and you can see our screen is entirely changed. We have vertical waveforms. I don't have the library on the screen. And as I say, you can save 3 of those as your custom layout choices and just switch between them at will. So brilliant. So now we can see we've got the information there for all the pad modes that we've got going on. That's a fantastic feature. Another new thing that's come in the last few versions is the Bluetooth. Now, previously, it was just a Bluetooth input. So you could connect your phone or a tablet and just feed the input to deck 1, deck 2, or the main output. Now, in version 4.1, we now have the ability to do Bluetooth output. Not at the same time, you can't do both. It's one or the other. You can have input or output, but as you can see, I am currently connected to this JBL Charge 5 Bluetooth speaker, and although the volume is down right now, it's playing through that right now. It's feeding out to this speaker right here. And I've still got control of the master. I've still got control of the booth. So none of that has changed, but I'm also streaming to Bluetooth. So if you've got a big Bluetooth speaker around the corner in another room or outside and you're inside or something like that, you can absolutely be feeding audio to that, still work with your headphones or with local speakers plugged in via cables, and then you're also feeding out, yeah, maybe to the backyard or something, and playing out to a Bluetooth speaker out there. You can't use Bluetooth for mixing because the latency is really long. It's properly distracting. But you could be mixing in the headphones. As I say, you could have a little monitor speaker wired up next to you and be playing on Bluetooth speakers elsewhere. Brilliant. So the fact that it doesn't override like the main output or the booth, that for me is brilliant. On the subject of the booth, right, one thing that still annoys me, and this was in the case in the Prime Go, and I wish if they were messing around with the internals of this, which they obviously have done, I do wish they'd switch this up. You can't hear the microphone or the aux input, the hardware aux input, through the headphones. So I can't hear myself in the headphones. The only way I'm managing to do this demo right now and hear myself is by plugging my headphones into the booth output on the back, which means I only have one ear available. I can only hear in one ear. So if you're doing live streaming and stuff where you're using a mic, there's no way to monitor yourself on the mic with the Prime Go Plus, as there wasn't with the Prime Go. I do wish they had switched that up. That would have been nice for them to do, but they haven't done it. So just be aware of that if you're a live streamer, because obviously, you know, it's battery powered, it's super portable. This would be great for live Twitch streams, but you can't hear yourself in the headphones. And unless I'm missing something, I can't find a way to enable that at all. You can send the mic to the booth, but you still can't send the mic to the headphones. Obviously the Wi-Fi is there now. You know, the team at Denon DJ told me that most of their Prime users or the Engine users are using Wi-Fi to connect to the internet on their devices, so they got rid of the Ethernet port, and that's enabled the longer battery life, which is a fair thing. And you can still use a dongle there, so you can connect via a USB to Ethernet dongle. It takes up obviously that port there, but you can use a hub. It's a whole thing, but yeah, Wi-Fi is there as well. That's been in there for quite a long time now. Other settings, we have the control center, so we can enable that fader echo, we can adjust the crossfader contour, sampler volume in there as well, stop time. You can edit your beat grids on the fly, of course. Source wise, we've got the ability to choose different sources, so we can choose our SD card, USB stick, and also the streaming services. So in my case, I've got Beatport and Beatsource. You can connect to your Dropbox as well. You can also connect to Engine on your computer via Wi-Fi as well. All of this is very, very neat and has been, you know, working its way into the Engine ecosystem for a while. Obviously, you can save your preferences to your drive or load them in from Engine on the fly as well. The other settings there's not a whole lot more to look at, but there's one other thing that I keep forgetting to think about, and that is the fact that you've also got Engine lighting. So if you have SoundSwitch on your computer, you can export your Engine, your SoundSwitch data to your media device, plug it into here, and you can control Engine lighting directly here from the Prime Go Plus as well. So yeah, overall, you know, I've not even looked, we've got the mics up there, all of that stuff, but yeah, this thing, although it is the same as the Prime Go in nearly every respect, the Prime Go of today and the Prime Go Plus are not the same as the Prime Go that was launched back in 2020. They're just almost entirely different machines.
Before we wrap up, I'll quickly just reiterate what's new in Engine 4.1, which is being released at the same time as the Go Plus. First of all, there's that Bluetooth output. It's not coming to all devices, but it will be available in the Prime 4 Plus, the Prime Go, the Go Plus, the SC Live 2 and 4, and all 3 versions of the Mixstream Pro. There's also that new smart headphone queue, which comes to every all-in-one, and Engine lighting has been upgraded to work with the latest SoundSwitch features, like the 128 auto loops and the ability to trigger auto loops to override scripted tracks. One other change for the Prime Go and the Go Plus is that slip mode has been added in Engine 4.1. It's activated by pressing Shift and the vinyl buttons. It's a cool feature, just not one I ever use myself. Overall, 4.1 is another solid update for all Engine users. The thing about the Prime Go Plus dropping now towards the end of 2024 is that it says to me quite clearly that the true next generation of Engine hardware is still some way off. And as a DJ tech nerd, that makes me a little bit sad. But taking a step back, Engine OS as it stands today is still the most powerful and fully featured standalone system on the market. It may not have taken over the big club and festival booths as in music might have once wanted, but for power users in fields like mobile DJing, it's hard to argue with its prowess. So who should buy the Prime Go Plus? Well, simply anyone who already had their eye on the Prime Go. The people who absolutely should not buy it are those who already own the original. You'll gain precisely nothing, aside from a bit of extra battery life. But if you've been thinking of adding a Go to your setup and you're buying today, then I wholeheartedly recommend the Go Plus. It's a very minimal remix of an existing masterpiece, but that makes it no less of a masterpiece itself. In the comments, let us know your thoughts on the Prime Go Plus, and I'd love to hear the experiences of those who own the original Prime Go. Do you share my thoughts on how amazing it is, or are you less of a fan? Sound off in the comments below. Thanks for watching this episode of Beatsource Tech. I do hope you've enjoyed it or found it useful. If you have, please give the video a thumbs up and make sure you're subscribed to the channel and you've turned on notifications so you don't miss any future videos. I'll see you next time.